Thank you. Welcome. We'll wait for the live streaming before we start. Are we good to go, Harriet? Thank you. Right, welcome everybody. Let's declare this Audit and Risk Committee open. And first of all, are there any conflicts of interest for items of decision on the agenda? None noted. Apologies.
For Tom for being late.
Okay, I thought you were just apologising for Tom, but okay, for being late. All right. Can I have a mover for Tom's lateness? All right.
Yes.
Councillor Beck, seconded. Councillor Goodwin. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Public forum. Don't have any items of public forum, Mr Chief Executive. Items not on the agenda, if you're reported, Mr Chief Executive. None?
I was within the public excluded.
There is a...
There will be the Chief Executive update on verbal update on risks.
So we'll take that as public excluded. Now, I notice we've got some regular attendees. Do we want to change the agenda around and hear from our service providers and let them, with the permission of the chair? Sorry, permission of the meeting of the chair, right? Right. So I've had a rough morning, team. You'll read about it tomorrow, okay? Troy, thank you. Page 59, my apologies. Page 59.
Thank you.
Otherwise I'll get lost if I don't. Right. Corin, this is technically your report, so...
Technically my report. Welcome Sarah from Aratoy and hand over here to present the report.
Okay, thank you Sarah.
Kia ora koutou, nice to see you all again. The Aratoy has been bustling as usual. From our financials you can see it's fairly similar to what it was in the last quarter. It's been, as you all know, raising expenses meant that there are things like OPEX that are, and insurance that are higher than we budgeted for, but we've been working on mitigating that, getting good support from outside. Retail space hasn't been as productive, but I think those of you who are in the retail space will know that almost everyone can say that about particularly this last quarter. It's been harder than we would all like, but we're hopeful and working on solutions to sort of push it. Jumping to our key results area, very excited to have secured a new item for the collection. Travelling writing box that belonged to Alexander Hogg, who was a newspaper man based in Masterton, was also representative at central government for Masterton. So something we didn't have from him in the collection. Really good example of the way in which we connect to Wellington, but also the history of writing in newspapers in Masterton in particular. Also, he was a great champion of rural communities and the working man in the Wairarapa. So sort of a great story to tell with that very beautiful object. Not often that you have the writing case and its own case all beautifully intact. Lots of really great exhibitions. We, of course, over this period had the great, the closing of some really great exhibitions. Natasha Ratuba's Boinga, Tatania Kalida's Wairarapa Felt, the always popular New Zealand Sotheby's International Realty Wairarapa Art Review, which really did showcase some really great Masterton artists, and really pleased to see how well that was received by a lot of people. And of course King Street Artworks, which I think is a big favourite of a lot of people and really shows how much the arts really do impact on people's everyday lives. There are a lot of people who go to King Street who would never necessarily think that they'd have the opportunity to show their art in an institution like Aratoy, so we're really proud to be able to showcase the creativity of our local community. We've had some very good talks and events, and yeah, as for our KPIs, we're either in progress or have achieved almost all of them. really excited to share next time the results of our visitor survey, which was the highest engaged visitor survey that we've had. And also a little plug, we've got our winter season exhibitions opening next Friday, the 31st, where all going well at the same time we'll be launching our collection online, which is a significant portion of our collection will be on our own collection online website. So really exciting to be able to give the people of Wairarapa access to readily to the collections, with also keeping in mind there is some parts of the collection, including taonga, that will be not available online just for cultural reasons. But really excited to be able to showcase the collection, showcase Masterton and the Wairarapa on that site, which is in the very final stages, so very exciting. Anyone got anything that they...
Any questions, or Sarah?
Sarah, hi, sorry. Just excuse my ignorance in case you've mentioned this before, but just around your employment expenses, how many paid staff are there at Aotearoa?
So I'm the only full-time staff member.
Yeah.
Our other staff members are all part-time. We have the equivalent of about 4 FTEs,
Cool.
and that is across education, front of house, collections, finance.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Sarah.
Short and sweet.
No, I was going to say, you're very appropriate, right?
Thank you.
All right. Yes, was your recommendation. Right. Thank you. So can I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Craig. Councillor Betts. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
As against, carried. All right. Now we've got Anna. Thank you. Please. Oh, there you are. I was looking over there. I couldn't see you, man. Your report again.
Yeah, so Anna's going to present it. Just the one thing I wanted to flag is the last time TW were Audit and Risk Committee, it was obviously a bit of a negative picture, but this report reflects a bit of a change in that mood, which Anna will speak to.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Yes, we've had a good summer, which was long overdue and very much welcome, and it's meant that the autumn has also stretched out and our visitation is still continuing. We haven't hit that winter period where things slow down a bit, so that's been really exciting and the results have reflected that. But this particular quarter report is for the first quarter, so quarter 3, but the first 3 months of this year, including summer. And we had a lot of great events in the Masterton district that appealed to visitors outside of the region, which we promoted heavily through our channel. So the events such as Hops and the Vines at Metahiri, which is the first time event for that one, Mayhem at the Masterton Drags, National Drag Racing Champs, Castle Point Races, Golden Shares. And although the Summer Hummer was pitched for locals, the Drags project certainly had pulling power to attract visitors to the region, so we made sure that we alerted people that this was happening also in Masterton as well, and outdoor movies at the Bra proved incredibly popular. If you want to see exactly how and what we promote, most of you will either have a Facebook account or an Instagram account, so if you Google or put in the search Wairarapa, you will clearly see how we go about it and what sort of messaging we're doing, particularly obviously relating to Masterton and the businesses and surrounds in this area. Looking at the data, although we don't get accommodation data down to the level of TLA, so for Masterton specifically from MB, we know that visitation was up 9.9% for the month end February 24 versus February 23. And this was especially from international visitors. We were just talking earlier about the value of trends. I think I've mentioned previously that we want to increase our international visitor market because it helps build resilience into the system. When we have international shocks like COVID, domestic served as well. When we have internal shocks with the economy in terms of high interest rates and the cost of living crisis, it's the international visitor who comes, stays longer and spends more, helps our economy. So we need more international tourists in order to build some resilience into the system. Unfortunately, we're still not getting data from MB with regards spend data. This is a national problem. But we know that the year ending February 23, domestic and international tourism, 90.2 million for domestic and 11.4 million for international into Masterton. And I would expect that based on the accommodation figures and the increased visitation, we certainly have noticed that that spend should increase, but I don't have any data to prove that. We're not there in the region. I wanted to give you a little bit of a dark sky update as well. It's an exciting phase for the Masterton district in particular. We have been working with agritourism businesses, or businesses looking to diversify their income into agritourism, particularly in the Masterton area. And dark skies is an excellent opportunity for them to utilise this opportunity, because many of the businesses, particularly in the coastal way, have no light pollution and have amazing scenery and experiences that our visitors, domestic and international, really love. And on that, we have a number of businesses, and I'm just going to list a few of them out: Ranganui Retreat, the Homestore in Riversdale, Rahuri Coastal Loop, Rewa Station, Tanui Food Forest, Castle Point Hotel, Tanui Pub and Fernglen, who have put their hand up to be part of the accreditation program here for Masterton, and are very willing to hear more about it and have a light meter placed at their place and take recordings in order for Masterton to achieve that wonderful accreditation, hopefully in the near future. Also, we're really pleased that Sam and Hari from the Star Safari, we worked a great deal with them to get them trade ready, which means they're domestic and international trade ready product. They have applied for some funding from the Regional Economic Development Plan, a small amount of funding, in order to do a pilot program of business-to-business training about dark sky and having the opportunity to learn more about it. And these businesses, we are hoping, will be on that pilot program led by them. So it's a good place to be in tourism at the moment, especially when the weather's good.
Councillor Bex, thank you. Question, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. I've got 3 questions. Last time you presented to us, you spoke to us about Chrissy Cummings.
Yes.
And funding for her role.
Yes.
So I wondered if you could give me an update on that. So we'll start with that one first.
Sure. We were very lucky to have received some funding from Masterton District Council. Matt might be able to help me out with where that actually came from, in order to retain Chrissy, specifically around the product development and helping with the dark sky accreditation process.
So how long will that secure her for?
That will keep her through till the end of June, so to the end of the financial year.
And what are your plans after that, do you know?
After that, the coming year is going to be interesting, and I guess how things are going to pan out in 12 months' time will dictate how we approach the year coming as well. So everything is up in the air.
Okay, 2 other questions. Second other question was, on page 67 you talk about the New Zealand Wine Trail, and you say there's a comment there which competition is fierce to attract buyers, with 7 key buyers committed to Wairarapa. What does that actually mean? So
the Classic New Zealand Wine Trail is a trail that runs through from Wellington, Wairarapa up to Hawke's Bay. And traditionally in the international market, visitors come to New Zealand and they travel down State Highway 1. This is a relationship between these key partners in order to give people a reason to travel State Highway 2, so that they are driving through Masterton, Carterton, South Wairarapa as well. And the hook is 80% of New Zealand's wine is grown in this area, including Marlborough. So we work collectively together to encourage international tourists to come this way. A wholesaler is somebody like, for example, if you go into a large travel agency and you pick up a brochure and it's got packages in it, things that you can see and do in another country. Well, a wholesaler is somebody who organises that for American market or for English market or Asia. So selling the classic New Zealand wine trail is a really great way to promote this region and for people self-driving from Wellington up to Hawke's Bay or the other way to come past our front door. And then we've got to provide them experiences so that they spend money in the region.
So what do you mean though about 7 key buyers?
So a buyer is a wholesaler.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And the other question I have is on page 68. You say you've secured funding to support the development of a Māori tourism strategy. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Māori tourism strategy was created under the Strategic Assets Protection Program, and that is something. Can you tell me? Oh, I don't have the same.
Yeah, it just says Destination Wairaka secured funding to support the development. So that's already been done, hasn't it?
Yeah,
okay.
that's.
So what stage are you at with that now? Then is you've got a strategy?
There is a strategy, but we're working in conjunction with our Māori tourism operators, of which there's about 12 of them, in order to work through what they need to help enable them in tourism. But it will dovetail into the economic development strategy that is being developed currently, or will be developed currently as a region.
So that's ongoing?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, thanks.
Thanks. Any other questions? Yep, Councillor. We'll go down the table.
I was just curious, what sort of scale the Star Safari, is that just a couple of people, trying to make a business for themselves? How big is that? And
how big is that? So Star Safari is two roles for them. Their day job is they go throughout schools throughout New Zealand, and I think they're at Lakeview just recently actually, teaching kids about the night sky, awe and wonder for small people, and they're very good at what they do. In order to help fund some of their stuff that they do, so that's their why. They love kids, they love educating, and getting them to fall in love with what they're in love with. At night time, they run these Star Safari night experiences, and it's up to a maximum of 8 people each time, and through the middle of summer and middle of winter, because it's the most ideal time in order to see the dark sky, they can run 3 or 4 sessions in a night, depending on how late the groups will want to stay out. So it depends. I don't know exactly how many people are going through that, but it's certainly become a regular.
sorry.
It's exceptional.
Yeah. Have you experienced the Star Safari?
Sorry, what's that?
Have you experienced the Star Safari out at Masterton?
No, just at AD school.
Right.
Harry and Sam are exceptionally good at what they do, extremely engaging, and they've also brought in lots of parents in the community to their events every school. So they're superb.
Yeah.
I've never seen their equal in a program like
that. He's an astrophysicist and she's an astrobiologist. I mean, they're incredible, absolutely incredible. But the way that they communicate to children is they're absolutely on their level, and equally to adults who've got lots of questions. But when you take families along, when I've taken my family there, they're just, it's very, very cool.
Thank you. My questions are pretty mundane after that last one. What is CNCWT?
Oh, Classic New Zealand Wine Trail.
Okay.
Those are if you've noticed, as you're driving up State Highway 2, the grapes on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this has been around, I think, for almost 15 to 20 years.
20 years at least.
Yeah, it's been around for a long, long time, and it really is, tourism does take a long time to embed, and this was always set up as an international touring route for people coming. And if you go on your GPS in your car, it comes up with Visit New Zealand Wine Trail as well. And it's a really good way to simplify what you can see and do on State Highway 2. And it's not just about the wine, it's about unique experiences with people and tasting food and wine and meeting the locals, as opposed to busloads of groups of people going to certain things.
Thank you for making my question sound exciting. And my next question is, where is Tākina? Don't know where I've...
Oh, Tākina?
Yeah.
Tākina is the great big new exhibition centre in Wellington, and it's right opposite Te Papa.
Oh,
Yeah, it's in the middle there, and on the other side, the old back entrance of the old Reading Theatre. It's lovely. It's a great asset for the Wellington region, and that, I guess, the opportunity for us is conferences and events, like small breakaways before or after a conference happening at Tākina. There's an opportunity for them to come here to, for example, with a new building that possibly could be in this vicinity, that they can do a dark skies experience. They can go out to Le Gras, they can have a day trip to Casa Point in between meetings, or as an incentive, to say, hey, well done, come to the Wairarapa.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Question here, I think one directed at Matt, right? Just in terms of, and maybe Anna can help, the question of you can't get the spend data from MB, is that going to be a permanent problem? If it's a permanent problem, how are we going to measure the KPI, Matt?
Yeah, I think MB are working through it. We just got our quarterly economic monitor from Infometrics last week, and that had no information on tourism as well because of the lack of data. So I think, I think if MB aren't going to be able to provide that data, we'll probably have to revisit the KPIs.
There is a working group at the national level. We're trying to work through this with statistics, etc. I think what's slowing things down also is that MB have shed a few people from certain areas, and therefore it's taking longer to work through the issues. It's very, very frustrating, and it's felt certainly on the national level as well.
I was talking about the permanency of it, right?
Yeah.
With government cost
Yeah.
shipping, right?
Yeah.
Councillor Betts?
Yeah, I just have two other questions. One is regarding your membership. And I see your income from your membership. My question is, have your fees increased at all, for instance, over the last couple of years?
Yeah, they increased last year, certainly. Yep. And we've tried to look at our funding model and make sure that it is more user pay. So, for example, if an event, they can be an event partner and you pay more for that if it's over a certain threshold with so many thousands of people attending. If you need more assistance and more work around press releases or paid for marketing or whatever it might be, then we request an extra on top of that.
And have you seen an increase in membership?
It's interesting. It's in the 4.5 years I've been in this role, it's a steady number, interestingly enough, where people drop off and then they get picked up. So depending on, like, for example, when I first started, there was more little like bed and breakfast type accommodation that then through COVID they went into more permanent leases or long-term leases, so they dropped out of the tourism game. And then you had people picking up, whether it's a dark sky or Tom Cycles, for example, he's getting into the tourism game now as well. So it's interesting how flat the membership tends to be. When it comes to spend, we don't have any recent data, but spend at a regional level predominantly is retail, and we have very, very few people in the retail game who see themselves in tourism, and yet a third of the regional spend is retail at the top, accommodation at the bottom.
And my other question is, because all businesses look at their revenue and costs and whatever the economy's like, and I noticed that quite a lot of your costs are associated with your eyesight. So my question is, and I know you've got Mount Burrow and Masterton.
Yes.
Because sometimes it comes up about, do people use eyesights now when everything's on your phone?
Yep.
So I just wondered whether eyesights are still relevant.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my question.
Yeah. To some people they are still very relevant, and to others they're not. And that tend to be the people that they are relevant to are in sometimes more vulnerable positions in terms of they're coming in to book a bus somewhere elsewhere in New Zealand, and they're coming into the eyesight to utilise those sorts of services. So this is local community. And at the other end, you might have local community people coming in who are buying tickets to an event, and they would rather not buy that online. They want to come and see somebody and get a ticket in their hand. So that's from a domestic point of view. From an international point of view, when it comes to you're in Masterton and you're moving through to Hawke's Bay, going into an eyesight, say, where would you recommend I should go to next? And an eyesight, the network is all linked up. That's one of the benefits of being part of an eyesight. And so then they might book on their forward accommodation, or they'll be heading out to Castle Point and they'll go, can you tell me, is there a electric car charging station out there?
I think the question really is though, is the model still relevant, or are we doing it because we've always done it? And when everybody's looking at where you can improve efficiencies, there's a high cost compared to the revenue generated. So my question is the model, do you think moving forward, has it have a future?
Look, depending on how things roll over the next few months and what the future is for Destination Wairarapa from a funding perspective, then all of those things will be on the table, and we'll be taking the board will be taking a deep dive into working out, as an RTO, our key thing, our reason for being, there are 31 in the country and we're a marketing organisation.
5 years ago though, people wouldn't buy tickets online. Now everybody's buying tickets online, but it's a bit like your bank service. Sometimes you get to a stage where you've got to say, well, we've got to draw a line in the sand.
Yeah.
So you're not there yet, obviously.
No, and it's a board.
Robin, how are you?
Yeah, good to see you. From a board's perspective, I can assure you we're looking at all those things. Ironically, the other day, our Masterton Eyesight won the award for one of the most progressive. You might just explain it.
So within the Eyesight network, it's a $250 voucher that goes out to the eyesight that had the greatest growth in sales from one period to another. And our Eyesight in Masterton achieved that. It's a small token, but I guess that's why I'm not. That's something that we have to drill down to work out, is the value still there or isn't it? Because sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't.
I think it's to do with us older generation people.
That's us.
It's not the young
look over there, look at friend.
A lot of people who are in that older group, and they've been to the eyesight and they really make very positive comments. Our team and both eyesights are amazing, and they're just so helpful, and they come back and tell us that. So we get very good feedback. So it's not all. The other thing is we're looking at is, can we get someone to sponsor where we put the eyesight? Because it's not a great place where it is at the moment. It's hidden, it's the best hidden secret in the whole of Masterton. But we didn't buy that properly. I mean, we didn't acquire that. It's one of those things. So we are looking at that as well. So we're not completely given up, but it's certainly on the table. Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Anna. Right. So we go back to the second councillor, Stella. Oh, you want to say something? Sorry. Oh, no. All right.
Hands up.
Yeah, should be hands up. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Now we go back to, so let's jump around. 5.1, otherwise I will get told off. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow.
It's just,
Stephanie, our policy manager.
oh, Stephanie's going to, I just saw, Karen's name on it, so I thought you've done all the hard work, but
Stephanie did
Stephanie's
all
done
the hard work,
is she?
and Sophie did the hard work instead.
5.1, page 6. Thank you, Stephanie.
Kia ora koutou. So this report is seeking the committee's endorsement of the sensitive expenditure policy manual and the fraud, dishonesty and corruption policy and procedure. So we've undertaken a review of these with input from across the relevant parts of the organisation and to capture the recommendations that we came from Audit New Zealand, as well as external guidance available from the Office of the Auditor General, IRD and the Ministry of Justice, so the Sensitive Expenditure Policy Manual provides a framework for entering into or approving sensitive expenditure and other financial transactions on behalf of Council. And it's underpinned by a number of principles, those being that sensitive expenditure must have a justified business purpose, preserve impartiality, be made with integrity, be moderate and conservative, not derive personal financial gain, and be made transparently and with appropriate authority. So those are kind of the key principles that underpin that manual. The fraud, corruption and control policy and procedure is really about setting out our zero tolerance approach that we take to fraud here at Masterton District Council and ensuring that we're responding appropriately to any suspected incidences of fraud and that evidence is gathered and handled properly and that investigations are undertaken appropriately. So we have a procedure that supports that policy, provides a bit more of that step-by-step process when we are faced with any alleged fraud or corruption, and you'll note in there it does include involvement through the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee as well.
I did notice that.
Yeah. Okay. And so your endorsement of these documents today, for us it will support them being up to date, aligning with best practice guidance and responding to those Audit New Zealand recommendations. And subject to your endorsement, they would be going to Council for approval on the 26th of June and then would apply from 1 July, so when we head into the new financial year.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Goodall.
Is the ultimate, so we adopt this, for instance, and is the ultimate test for us the audit report when they come through and say, yep, you've got the right amount of segregation of duties, etc., etc. And does that, yes, so if we approve this now, when we get the annual report, I suppose the management report or whatever, that's when we can say, yep, we checked that off.
And David might be able to speak this further. That would be with the many instances if the policy wasn't followed, that would be reflected through that. The policy itself is about ensuring that our practices align with best practice guidance. We would have policy and guidelines for staff and members around that.
But the auditor would also review those policies and if they weren't right,
absolutely. So the auditor will get an example, the auditor will get all the chief executive expenses and we'll go line by line through that to ensure that everything is followed, that we have the supporting documents, the sign off by the mayor, reimbursed appropriately into the right bank account, all that will occur. So it's good, really good checks and balances, and it's good practice.
Yeah. For me it's quite complicated, but because the auditor's office comes in from the outside, that gives me an ultimate sort of tick off.
Can I help? I think the ultimate purpose of it is to keep Masterton District Council out of the newspapers that it has been spending money inappropriately on its staff and travel. Right? That's absolutely, and it's about I know that's the test, right? But obviously, what Stephanie has highlighted, it's about aligning to your values. About being, it's got to be business based, it's got to be appropriate, and it's got to be low cost.
And just to add to that, before Karen does too, we discounted ELT, and we also rationalised quite a lot of the values of things. We reduced them. I felt they were a little bit too high, and so did ELT. So morning teas and various things we've reduced right down to something that we think could be catered by going to the supermarket rather than buying in products that are pre-catered. So and guidelines around when we would give things such as a so, do you want to add anything to that, Karen?
Just that, yes, the auditors will make sure that we are adhering to the process set out,
Yes.
but it's also very much an internal document that we use on a very, very regular basis, the staff use. And there's promulgated this out to all staff into, well, we'd like to perhaps have a gift, we'd like to perhaps have some catering, and it's used regularly for, what's our limit, what are we supposed to be working for. So that's the reflection of our values through that document and the use of it.
So like Kim's suggestion of finding ways of buying things cheaper, we could, if I found a cheaper supply of paper, it might be easier to get hold of some printed items that I want from time to time. We could have a win-win.
Potentially, councillor, but we would then, in our next report, not be meeting those requirements around our corporate carbon emissions.
We haven't got to.
Your next report, not ours. Yeah.
Nice try.
All right, any other questions? Chief Executive's not going to like me, right? Interestingly, and because I travel a bit, I understand how these systems work, right? The you say is employees may not retain frequent flyer benefits, such as air points, status points when travelling in MCD business. How do you police that? Because the air points are actually to the person. We had a really good debate, another council I was at, and we worked out that the person travelling on a cheap ticket would get $3.50 in terms of air points, which they thought was actually appropriate considering they had to be at the airport at 6:30 to get the flight, and they were getting paid for that time. So I thought that was actually a really good overtime payment. Was the Chief Executive?
Well, I did question that very same question.
Yeah.
And Karen will answer it.
Thank you. And the same with status points. Status points don't give you anything apart from potentially when things go wrong, you're further up the status in terms of getting fixed quicker than someone else.
Well, there are benefits, and it does actually reflect that, the principle, and that we shouldn't be accruing benefits personally that we're gaining through our employment. My can answer is that we, on matters like this, it's not so much of a matter of enforcement, it's what we call operating in the shadow of the law, in that because this is reflecting our values, that our expectation is that our staff will adhere to that policy and they will not do what is prohibited in the policy. If we then later transpires that we find out that has happened, then we will be able to take action.
I think also it can drive decisions if you authorise that to occur. So an example is if you say you're allowed Air New Zealand air points over, let's say, a Jetstar flight that's a little bit more affordable, people may sway towards, well, I'll book an Air New Zealand.
And there is actually a way to overcome that. It's not the staff can't make their own bookings. It has to be done by.
It's just what we do.
Yeah, so that actually protects that,
right? Through the corporate credit card.
I mean, I know of an organisation, and it's not like a government one, where there is significant overseas travel, and I mean significant, and because of the distance they're going, and also some of the travel is actually paid by third parties. Right? They are allowed to accumulate the air points, but it's got to be used for business purposes. Okay? So, for example, status points allows you to get an upgrade if you get well up the scale, right? So that actually, that organisation says, yes, we will allow, providing those points are being used for business purposes. Which is, and again, you're probably not doing, because of where you are, you're not likely to see big amounts of money, but it's more about the principle. And I know this is coming, I know where it's coming from. All government departments have this in it, and I've talked to the previous Assistant Auditor General about this, and he goes, well, it's a council call, but it's really hard to police. Particularly when you can get air points on your bank card and other means as well. So you get $3.50 from your travel with Masterton, and then you get $400 from you. How do you differentiate between the $3.50 and the $4 you get from the bank? I'm being pedantic here, Mr. Chief Executive, but it's a principle. Right?
Oh, yes.
Right? Yes, I'm being pedantic. Okay, move on.
So Chair, I shouldn't be using my sub-card when I buy morning tea for staff at school.
Sorry?
Is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
Yes. No. The issue is that, so when you buy, if you buy, you shouldn't use, in theory, you shouldn't use your sub-card if the school is paying for that morning tea for lunch, right? But then if you use your sub-card then to pay for the next lunch, that's fine, right? And that's the principle of it.
Okay.
No, yeah, I know. Yeah.
The board chair was probably noted it as well.
Yeah.
I just have a query, and I don't want to come across as a party pooper, but do we think it's morally correct to have ratepayers contributing towards the council staff social club?
Good question.
Yeah, the Office of Audit and General Guidance around this is that it is appropriate for public organisations to contribute where there's good, kind of meets good FOIA obligations, and social club contribution is an example of that. So in developing and reviewing the policy, we have tried to reflect that that is still in line with the guidance, the latest guidance. Yes.
We don't have a lot of members either in the social club, so.
Yeah, I just sort of, in my 24 years of employment, I've never had my employer contribute to my social club. It's always been something that I've paid for myself. Well, my next question, if I can have one more, please, Chair.
Absolutely.
Is I just would love to get some examples of the staff support and wellbeing expenditure. What would that kind of cover? What would be something that might be covered? Vanessa?
I think it's more related to...
Oh, sorry, page 20, around 22? There was just a bit around, sorry, it was supplementing support and wellbeing items for staff. I just wanted to get an idea of what that looks like. Sorry, I read this word. Can't find it?
Oh, this is the health and safety and wellbeing work. I'm looking to Ben now.
Yeah,
Is that within the PSA?
no, separate. We do some wellbeing initiatives like last year we did skin checks, for example, where we for staff who are out in the field, we provided a 50% discount for staff to go get a skin check.
Cool, and like flu injections maybe.
Flu injections.
Yeah, that's all I need to know, thank you. Just clearing that up.
Any other questions? So I'm going to just read the policy, and I said, having given 3 staff members some pens today, but I see that pens are actually exempt from the policy because they're low value. But this is and it's in the wording, but I wonder whether it needs to be emphasised. We talk about infrequent and inexpensive gifts, right? I'm aware of also some consultants, right, will take. I come and see David once a month to talk about treasury. I know he doesn't, I'm using him as an example, right? And I always shout him a coffee and a scone. Now, if I did it once a year, I haven't done it. I've never shouted you a coffee, have I? Right? But if I was doing it all the time, that to me would actually be inconsistent with the policy. Is that the way you read it?
Yeah, I took infrequent gifts to be, or low value to be like, something that you might see, a pin or a badge, as opposed to...
But what about buying David a coffee? Sorry? It's more expensive than my pen, I can assure you of that.
It's favouritism.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see that as a material issue. It wouldn't concern me unless there was a procurement process or something underway, and that, so it's really up to the employee to declare whether there's a conflict or potentially a perceived conflict. primarily around the motives of that. So,
and there's a dollar value nominated in the policy for that gift value to do.
Yeah, all I'm thinking of is the coffee's going through the roof. It's $7 a cup, right? And if I bought you 12 cups a year, right, that would trigger the policy.
If it triggered around the gifts provisions and hospitality, then potentially yes. And one of the questions that that I asked is that I come from regulatory services in the UK, where regulatory services do not accept tea, coffee at all from anybody that they're visiting. But that's not within the New Zealand, we tend to be a little bit more generous. And it's not within the Auditor General's guidelines either, that you differentiate between services. So that is something that we take into consideration.
So in the UK, someone's will buy you coffee.
Well, not even buy. We wouldn't accept a cup of tea or coffee when we went to visit premises.
Was that right?
Yes, that's right.
Probably not good coffee.
Because we
I was going to say, I don't blame the coffee over there, but anyway, that's by the by.
It's like it was so tasty.
Right, okay. All right, so thank you for that, Steph and Karen. Right, so we go back to the resolution. So we've got a number there. Is the committee happy with all the recommendations? Right. So you'll have a mover, Councillor Crane, seconder, Councillor Goodwin. All those, no further discussion, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried, thank you very much. Right, now we go to 6.1 on our minutes on page 48, taken as read. Are there any corrections? No comments. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Tim. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goodwin. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. Right. 6.4. Oh, you didn't have to move. Welcome back. Corporate carbon emissions reduction plan, page 69.
So this is our 6-monthly progress report. I can say that we have been gaining some decent traction from having our dedicated climate change activators looking at this area of work with council, and it's also helped with the long-term plan process. We've been looking at our services and service levels and how we can align our various strategies and plans in this area. So we have completed and started many more of our actions in the last 6 months. We also have a new environmental lead officer starting in July that will be able to take this work forward. What we're proposing to do is to have a look at the actions within the action plan just to make sure that they're still relevant and achievable and feasible, and then we can report to the committee at the next 6-monthly update on that. But happy to take any questions so far as I can answer on the actions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Deeks.
First question, that environmental lead officer position, is that replacing Lisa or is it a different position?
No, it's replacing Lisa.
Okay. Second thing was, on page 73, action 10, you talk about avoid using electrical portable heaters. My thing is, why have we got them anyway? We shouldn't have any. And
such good air conditioning.
And the second one is, like I was surprised that we've got electric heaters. But following on from that, it says more staff education needed as an action point. So do we have, how are we going to address that? Because obviously people are turning heaters on and leaving lights on. I know it's only a little thing, but I mean, it comes from behaviour.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're all about changing behaviours. That's the whole point of the plan, right? Unfortunately, I'm going to be looking over in Maz's direction here. We've had a long-running battle with our HVAC system in Waiata. It's not fit for purpose, and never really was fit for purpose. We either cook our staff downstairs or freeze them in the winter, and it's very drafty. It's not an easy fix. We have had some money set aside for a year or so. I don't know whether there's any update on that, Matt.
Well, only to say that a design has been completed and we're just about to launch into phasing the work across this financial year and the next.
So you've got a solution? Okay.
Yeah. It's just takes some time, and I can, after having taken on the planning and building portfolio, I now sit a couple of days downstairs, and I've been cooked, and now I'm starting to freeze too. So whilst we want to try and obviously minimise the emissions, we also have to have staff well-being in hand.
And my third question was, perhaps if we could get an update on the dark sky accreditation process and just how we're going with that.
And that's disappeared, unfortunately. I know that we've got an instrument on order that should be coming into the country as we speak. We need to pay some GST on it, and then we're looking with the working group about where we can go out and start using that instrument to do some baseline studies.
Okay, so it's pretty recent.
Yes, it is, definitely, yeah.
Great, thank you.
We've got Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Stella. Thank you.
I was just going to ask about the saving paper policy. I would trust, and I do appreciate it, it's important for the environment, but good governance can be either, a page of paper, if it can help good governance, I'm sure is well worth it. And I just would hope that the desire to save a bit of paper doesn't override the need for governors, councillors to have paper when they want.
What was the question?
Copies of
Question? Question, Councillor Goodwin?
Asking that the staff desire to save paper doesn't override the organisation desire to have good governance.
You still receive all the information electronically, and that's available to you, so...
It's a different issue. Stella is not, you can't print it off, for instance, if I want to.
For very good reasons.
Well, you say that, but that's another discussion for another place.
Yes, but if you want to print the stuff, then you can request that, and we'll look if we can assist you with that.
We have run the numbers as well. It's not just about saving paper, although that's obviously a very laudable action on itself, but we ran the numbers for the cost of paper. When we went on to Stella and stopped printing copies just for governance and governance area, I can't remember the figures off the top of my head, David, but there was a dramatic reduction, and also the costs of Stella that we would still need to pay for. I think that off the top of my head it was $20,000 a year that we were saving by not printing and by using Stella.
And there's a recycling opportunity with photocopiers and printers as well, and the 5-year-old fleet of copiers that we got 5 years ago are not past their use-by date. We'll continue using those because they're not worn out.
All I'm saying is
we're not debating we're talking about the report, right? We're not about the procedures, right? And how we're going on it, right?
And Councillor Goodwin made the comment that it was staff's document, it's the council's document as well, Councillor. That you've adopted these principles and we're delivering.
I've got Councillor Stella and I've got Councillor Beats.
Thank you. I'm glad to see the street tree policy is going to be reviewed in year 1. However, my question around that is that going to also require a committee? Because I know in the past we've had a committee designated to the street tree policy, there's like a policy group. Is that going to have a resurgence, or is that dead to water?
We will need to consider what the best way of delivering on that street tree policy. We do need a policy because it is referred to in the proposed Warren Combined District Plan as how we're delivering on those requirements. There's also, of course, the regional policy statement requirements for how much coverage we have within the urban areas that we need to meet. So there's all those considerations that will be going to the policy team to work our way through.
Thank you.
Councillor Beats.
On the action plan, there's 3 or 4 points that relate to investigating and targeting wastewater and wastewater treatment process emissions, which is apparently the highest area for council for that. That work hasn't started, whereas to me see that it's probably a priority and something we could tackle and make a big difference in. And the timeline was 21 to 23, and obviously we're now in 24, and I get all that. But I just wondered, is that work that will start be a priority for the new environmental lead officer?
We need to work with Maz's team on that. I mean, the difficulty is the emissions depend on the type of system that you have. And so once we've bought the system, it's very hard to change the system.
Yeah, it's a real opportunity though for us to make a difference.
It is, absolutely. But also is the way that you measure it. MFE changed the way that you calculate the emissions from various waste water treatment plants, and it reduced our emissions dramatically overnight, but we've done nothing to change that. So it's a really difficult area to work in. But yes, we certainly, it's on the plan. We certainly are, as an ELT, taking this piece of work very seriously.
But perhaps the answer would be that when the new person starts and they've got their feet on the floor, that maybe they might like to say, well, you know, here's the work in progress, but these are our priorities for the next 12 months.
Yes, so as I said in the beginning, we will be looking at what the actions on there and whether they're doable or not, and reporting back on them. So.
Thank you. Councillor. Yes.
I've got a question about the sequestration of trees in Masterton. You mentioned here we're talking about planting more trees. Now Masterton is absolutely inundated with beautiful trees that are sequestering. Why don't we get on and take that into account when we're addressing our carbon?
Well, we do take it to account. We want to plant some more.
Yeah, but we've already got, like, we can be claiming credits on what the trees.
Only if they're part of the ETS.
Yeah.
So that's potentially one option. And we know that we're looking at, you know, what land that we've got available. There's potentially land coming up that we could actually use to plant. And if it was sufficient for ETS, we could look at doing that.
Thank you for that, Karen. But the other thing is, I think we need to be well aware of, especially Don Bella's about potential planting more trees than that for carbon at home.
We look forward to putting that out in the public arena.
Right, thank you. Councillor Goodwin. There's a second question.
I'm just wondering on point 28 on the street trees, wondering if that's, if maybe there's a better way forward than this. I recently sent a request in that we look at planting Park Street and got told to put a notice of motion. Now Park Street, you know, the council widened it in the 1950s so that we could plant trees and plants down the middle and give a pathway to the park. And I don't like to be impatient, but you know, if some of those things have been planted, you know, 50 odd years ago, it would just, they'd be growing quite strongly and providing benefit in multiple ways. So I'm just wondering if there's a better way when spaces become available in that. Yeah, we could have notices of motion, we could leave it up to this Action 28, but isn't there a way of just saying, hey, there's a couple of bits of land around here that we've had several requests on, can't we plant them? There must have been dozens of plans done, I'll guarantee, over the 50 years. Just pull one of them out that looks the best and start planting.
So I don't think it's an either or, Councillor, it's all part of the same thing. We want to improve and increase our tree planting, so that will be covered as part of through the street tree policy. And we are also working, as you know, next year on a biodiversity strategy, so no doubt that will be included in there. And so any time we have, for example, as you're saying, any work that's coming up in the park, we've got a strategy to look to how we can increase that planting. So exactly what you're saying.
My only criticism is that
we're not debating the issue.
There is a planting system, timely system, and what you're suggesting possibly doesn't take that into account, and it will make a decision in summer when you can't plant.
We can take that decision forward for the planting season, which will be coming swiftly.
You've had your question answered, thank you. Councillor Kim?
Chair. I was glad to hear, I've got a question as well, that the person who used to work for the council this morning talking about cobalt and the mining of that, and how she acknowledged the impact on people in the Congo in particular. But I also felt there was some justification in there for doing so in terms of balancing out other things that happen and environmentally. And I can see here we still have, and I thought we'd change this to desire number 39 to have a fully electric fleet of electric cars. And I do remember, I think it was Marty pointed out to me, it was timed really well, that there are options, but I see that option's actually only got half the density of potential as a cobalt powered vehicle. So why are we still going down the pathway of electric EVs for our fleet? I think it's totally and utterly morally and ethically wrong, and I find it inexcusable. I can't see, why are we going down that pathway?
So that's still part of the action plan, because we haven't changed the action plan. When we do look at the reviewing what's in the action plan, we can certainly give that consideration. And we haven't taken any action on that.
Okay, so it's not, we're not going out and buying electric vehicles at the moment?
No.
Okay. That's reassuring.
We'll vote on that when the time comes.
We'll discuss that as we come to review the action.
Now's not the time.
Yeah, as long as it's not too much action.
No, excuse me, stay on track, please.
We are buying hybrid vehicles as appropriate, but not full EVs.
Okay, any other questions? I've got one, and David, not going to write. There's a new accounting standards coming in for managing climate change, which we won't have to comply with because we're not big enough. But will this plan, once it becomes mandatory, help you to do that? You probably haven't looked at it like me in any detail.
I haven't looked at the detail, but it will give us the framework to say we have an action plan and we can then report against what the council's doing, the same way the committee's being reported to at the moment. We can incorporate that into our annual report.
Okay. And the other thing too, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, I did hear you say you're going to review the timeline and targets. Is that what the new person wanted to job?
That's right. We didn't start till late. We've had a year where we didn't have any staff, so we will need to review those.
And that will come back to an appropriate committee with some I mean, I like where you're heading, right? Don't get me wrong. So it'd be nice to have some more, a bit like our SSPs, a bit more achieved, not achieved, on target, right?
Hearing you loud and clear.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Any further questions? Last opportunity. Thank you. So we've got a recommendation that we receive this report. I'm happy to move. Councillor Bex is happy to second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. 6.5, our non-financial reporting.
Me.
You? Oh, okay. Well done. You want a permanent place at the table, do you? Thank you.
Thanks. But yeah, so Tanya's obviously very busy on our LTP analysis at the moment, so I won't be able to do as good a job as Tanya usually does, so I'm just happy to take questions on that. I can note that we have made some quite significant improvements on Q3 on last year, but I'm happy to answer what I can, and we have people around to answer anything I can.
Exactly, thank you. Councillor Bex.
Now, there was some really good stuff in here, which is part of the discussion rather than the question, but a question I have is, this is, we've reported on, or haven't reported on the trails data logging because the data logging doesn't work.
And hasn't for a long time.
No, but we keep reporting on the fact that it's ineffective. It's right out the window, surely.
We have suggested in our long-term plan performance indicators that we log it.
Oh, good. And the other, so while I'm on that too, there's another one too for healthy homes, we have KPI, which is also redundant.
We're removing that too.
And the problem is, Councillor Bex, once you put it into the LTP, you've got to keep reporting on it for the next 3 years, right? So even if you can't get it after year 1, you say, oops, we can't report on it, you've still got to report that you can't report on it for the next 3 years, or the next remaining 2 years.
Great. And
okay.
I'll come back to the discussion.
All right. Councillor Tim.
Thank you. That's fantastic about the 2 quarterlies. And how much of that can be attributed to the lack of heavy rain, and how much would be attributed to better systems?
looking to Maz to be able to answer.
50-50?
I can't answer that. We are, we are still in a data gathering
But they
phase,
performed
really.
effectively last night and the day before. So with all the rain yesterday, we sent people out to Coburn Street and to look at the how the systems operated, and the report came back that they were functioning very well, and there was no need for any action or any portaloos or anything at all. There was I think 45, how many mils?
41, I think.
45 mils per year over that short window of time. So that's the temporary solution.
So those assets are doing what they should be doing, and there was no filling of tanks. So,
That's really positive, so you're really confident in those systems now that they're working effectively, that those tanks are working, that quarterlies are out really quickly, if there's any cleanup done straight away afterwards. So it's the systems, like that guy who did that presentation, he talked about it not being people focused, but being system focused, and we're now systems focused around that issue.
We're response focused around the issue, and we're doing a separate piece of work around a longer term solution to resolve this so that it's more permanent.
Yeah, but he was adamant it had to be a systems focus.
Absolutely, it's well and truly in place at the moment. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin?
I'm not sure how the best way to lead this is, but I've certainly had some talks with the CE. On page 86, you'll see the water consumption is described as no more than 578 litres per person per day.
Yeah.
And I would personally like to see, which I believe most places, many places around the world and New Zealand use, the same litres per day used for our wastewater through flow. We express it as 43,000 cubic metres per day.
Can I just cut you off at the pass? This is, all we're doing is receiving the non-performance results for the first 9 months of this year. What you're asking for is for us to debate what should be going into your performance measures for your long-term plan, which is happening right now. So that, in my opinion, is the appropriate place for this, your discussion, Council. Because we as this committee, or as a committee of council, we can't make any decisions on that. All we're doing is we're receiving the information and commenting on the results today, not looking at changed measures going forward. Okay?
Thank you for that. Just, I was told that I had to go through you, but
okay, well, sorry.
It's fine. Look, it's fine. I'm happy with your answer. We'll just take it up somewhere else.
Absolutely, that's fine.
Can you think of a way that it should go, Helen?
I can respond to that this was the question that you raised, Councillor, if I recall, at the council meeting where we were adopting the consultation document. You also requested at that point for that measure to be included. And our response, what we agreed, as I remember at the meeting, was that we needed to do more work around that because that measure is a consumptive measure, and off the top of my head I didn't think it was appropriate to be just including a consumptive measure when wastewater isn't consumptive. There are many more aspects that go into that. But what we did undertake was that we will take the next year to actually do some work on that and what is an appropriate measure for wastewater, and then we can internally report on that through the Audit and Risk Committee until such time as we come to change the performance measures in the long term.
There's your answer. Thank you.
I suppose I would have thought, I fully, it could be a 10-minute conversation, but I'm terrified at the thought of you employing staff for cubic hours to discuss changing the input from cubic
Your
meters.
question, Councillor, we're not debating. Your
We'd like to
question?
be evidence-based, and we need to go do some more research before we can actually determine that.
No? Madam?
On page 80, under regulatory, you have, in here it says that there are 6 education activities per annum, and more control, I guess. And at the end of the quarter, the third quarter, we do achieve 2. So that, to me, we've got 4 left to achieve in the fourth quarter. And so how are we to track it?
Corin?
Dogs. I'm just struggling to find page 80, sorry.
Regulatory on page 80.
Animal control, community education, you've got 4 more outstanding. Are they planned for the last quarter? I think is the question. Is that right, Councillor?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Karen. Yes.
So the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, thank you.
That
I heard a muffled yes, thank
Sorry.
you.
Yes. May I comment, Chair, that service is superb. They're at school every day. And each is like we're doing business.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, okay.
You have one other question?
I've got several actually. Page 84. Do you have the number of connections to our water supply?
Not in there. It will be in our long-term plan under the activity. I don't have the number to hand, unfortunately.
I think it's around the 9,000 figure.
9,000.
Around the 9,000 figure.
Divide 18 by 1.79, I think will give you the answer.
And page 85. So next page. Part 4, Part 5 is not fully compliant because of bacteria and protozoa. Would you explain that to me?
It's actually, yeah, I'm happy to explain that, Councillor. It's not non-compliant because of bacteria or protozoa. It's just that we haven't met the technical compliance in terms of how often we are measuring that data. The frequency, the right instrumentation hasn't been in place in the past.
Right.
So we haven't been measuring it often enough.
Because of changes made.
Yes, and so the changes to the drinking water assurance rules / Tamara Arawai has meant that we now, at the moment we're definitely compliant because instruments are in, but during a period we weren't compliant because we were still operating under the old rules where we did not need a particular piece of technology.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor David.
Just a question on the flooding side of things. Like with that amount of rain we had yesterday, there was some flooding in town, but the flooding was actually caused simply by leaves. And I think it is a responsibility of a lot of people that own these houses on these streets. All they got to do is go out and just clear it. So I'm not too sure how you record what a flood is, but it was certainly might have been high water levels yesterday, but it wasn't flooding. So I think it's a responsibility of some of these residents to just clean the
Sorry? Yeah, questions. Yes,
Sorry,
a question or was a comment?
No, I've finished it. I'm just following up.
Okay.
I have a question.
Got another question?
Just on that point, thank you, David. Page 88, I guess it is. With high rainfall and bad weather warnings, it's difficult for people with physical disabilities to get out and clean. So do we have people who do that?
Yes, councillor, so that would just be through logging a request through our service line. So you would say if you needed assistance or there was a blockage of some nature, and then one of our contractors would come out and have a look at it.
And are they on call?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Could I just do supplementary to that? So whose responsibility is it to clear those gratings on the roadside from leaves? Is it the owner of the property or is it the council's responsibility?
Well, if it's on council land, it's council.
So is the roadway the council then? Or?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Goodwin, question?
Just on that same subject, if it is a problem clearing these leaves, are the leafy suburbs, do they take more council money than, say, the non-leafy suburbs?
Good question. I don't know what suburbs are leafy and which ones are not council, but I can certainly look into it.
Usually just wealthier ones.
Oh, that's very quiet. Moving on. Yeah, Councillor Mailman, question?
Page 89, Portaloos in 2022, 160. Do we have that many at our disposal?
We did call ones from over the hill. We have, I'm not sure how many we have.
We usually have about, I think it's 20 or 25 to hand, but in that particular instance.
It's cumulative over
okay.
Yeah. We can call from, and in those really heavy rain events from the last couple of years, we have called for extra portaloos to come from over Wellington.
Right.
We have about 20 on hand.
And I noticed that except for the third quarter, they've been getting less and less. And is this because of the good weather?
This was Councillor Nelson's question around a combination of both.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scott?
Just correct me if I'm wrong, possibly this is for you, Kai. Does Morley Park not get reported under this meeting? Is it under the other meeting?
So, depends whether there's a KPI relating to Morley Park.
So it must be infrastructure.
So we talk about Morley Park as part of the infrastructure, and that will be in Maz's report now.
Thank you, that's cool.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, but lucky last.
In the report, there were 2 portaloos that were requested in the third quarter, yet they weren't completed until the fourth quarter. Do they have to wait that long?
No, the portaloos were on call because of some potentially bad weather. We didn't require portaloos.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Having them available in case. So, yeah, they weren't needed.
Okay. Right, any other questions? Any comments? Councillor Betts.
Really good to see the library numbers treading upwards, especially given our current conversations, submissions and deliberations. Good to have a handle of where that's sitting. And that's not just in person but digital as well. The other thing is too, I was interested and pleased that you're reviewing the pricing structure at the stadium, because feedback I've heard anecdotally through the community is that it's too expensive to hire. So it's good to see that you're doing a review. And good to see the gym numbers up as well. So I just think that's encouraging. So it all costs money. We keep going on about how difficult everything is, but people are still looking after themselves.
Comments, Councillor Tim?
Thank you, Chair. Just with David's point before about the leaves blocking the drains, I think that's incredibly important. It's not a minor issue because it's like Slash with the floods last year. Everything's attributed to climate change, but a lot of that will be about systems as well. And if whatever it's not, isn't it? It's not clear. It just looks like flooding is a much bigger issue than it used to be. So it's incredibly important that we have those systems actually working properly. So we're not attributing everything to one particular factor.
Just to add that as well, I was pleased to see last week a member of Recreational Services on Reynolds Street collecting leaves, giving all that And yesterday I had a number of reports of people out, again, mediation services clearing drains and things. Great.
Thank you. Interestingly, since we're in comments, in the US, you are required by law to clear the snow in front of your place in the sidewalk, right, by law. And if you don't do it, the council can come along and do it and send you the bill. So I wonder if we could do that for the police. Right, moving on. Yeah, moving on. Right, so going back to the report.
Page 77.
Thank you, page 77. Do I have a mover? Councillor David, second Councillor Stella. Any further discussion? All those in favour please say aye. Aye. It's carried. 6.6 health and safety.
Excuse me.
Changing of the guard. Welcome Ben. Take your report as read where you're coming up. So councillors can be preparing their questions.
Page 101.
Thank you, 101. Thank you, Ben. You solo today, are you?
Yeah, Kane's at conference today.
Oh, okay. Right. Take Kane's report as read. Is that cheeky?
No, it's always a team effort. No, Kane's done some work on this, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Councillor Betts.
Okay. Page 102, you talk about 78 of 141 contractors signed on. Is that good, bad and different, and or what is the process to get more signed on? Because I'm guessing that's the goal. And is it affecting who you can employ and work getting done if you've only got a recent 50% of contractors signed on?
I think it's, to answer your first question, yeah, it is a good starting point, but we can do better. So it's an evolving process. In regards to getting more people on site-wise, they're talking regularly with the assets team who engage with our contractors, who when contracts are provided, they use site-wise as one of the selection process on who to use. Because it's one of our ability to meet our obligations under health and safety.
And do you use contractors who aren't signed on?
I don't have that information on me, but that is definitely one of the criteria that we look at. Some of our sole traders we're supporting to get onto site-wise.
Is it a cost for them, is it?
There is
free, but it's a process.
There's a process around. It's quite a commitment to get on there, and it's the right commitment. So because it looks at all sides of health and safety, including competencies of workers and all that sort of stuff. So there is a real commitment, especially for sole traders, around, for example, training people to work at heights and all that. So they need to be able to demonstrate those sort of things. So which is really important. But,
I guess my question is, do contractors miss out on council work if they're not signed on?
No, I'm happy to answer if you like from an infrastructure perspective, not necessarily, because there's lots of different pre-quals that you can get that kind of line up. It might not be site-wise, but it might be site-safe, or it might be something else. So as long as they are kind of in CUI, then we would accept them to undertake the work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have 2 more questions.
You go for it.
I'm really interested to look at, or just see for interest, the MBC staff induction handbook, because I'm interested in those processes, and also the wellbeing calendar.
Sure, I can.
Yeah, it just gives us a feel, or gives me a feel for the culture and what things are important to us,
I'd like to see it.
and what how we're initiating people into the
initiation survey.
Yeah. Is there a goat involved?
No, it's not our role. But I think the question is, right, and while I think it's our role is to gain assurance, right, that there is that in place, right? And by actually seeing that there is something in place, right, actually gives us assurance. Because we are also responsible, well, we can't go to jail and keep the chief executive company. We certainly have a responsibility to ensure that council is doing everything to keep its staff.
Or will you get a printed copy?
Highly unlikely, I hope not.
I'd really like to see the flavour of what we're trying to get across to our staff. And maybe, you know,
That's
we
the
could
culture.
learn from it as well.
Yep, okay, all right. Sorry. Any further questions, Councillor Beck?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Tim?
Thank you. On page 104, what's meant by a robust return to work plan?
So when someone's on a long-term sick leave type scenario, so for example, we had a scenario where a staff member had a heart attack, for example. So it involves a formal process around where you gradually bring someone back to work. You ensure that you have all the right controls in place to ensure that return to work's done properly. A lot of employers don't do that very well, and it causes a huge amount of risk around ensuring that they return safely. So we've got a really good practice in that space now.
Thank you. And just one more, if I may. I'll just find it first. Page 1.
You found it? Quick?
Found it, yeah. Found it. What's meant by remuneration and benefit strategy under stresses? What would an example of that be? Page 106. In the second box under stresses. There is a continued commitment to workforce planning and mitigations to manage excessive workload risk. This has included an implementation of a growth and goal setting program, remuneration and benefit strategy, and continued workplace culture program. So what would that be? What would an example be?
So I suppose when I first arrived here at MDC, we had a really inconsistent remuneration and benefits strategy, so that impacted our ability to retain people. So this is really around making sure that people pay fairly and reasonably, so we don't have high retention levels around some of our talent through feeling they're not paid to market or fairly and reasonably. And we did have that for a period of time. Does that make sense? We received quite a bit of feedback around inconsistency around rent.
Councillor Scott?
Yeah, thanks Ben. Your report reads really positively around the culture sort of aspect of the council. Can you just identify some reasons, what's changed, I guess? You know, last year when we would read your report, there was a lot of talk around stresses and wellbeing and things like that. What's changed within the firm as such?
I think the big ticket items, Councillor, is around having, we talked a lot about resourcing last year, if you remember. That was a topic that, and for certain areas of the business, we've been able to recruit. So that's a big win, some of those operational areas. The other key culture area that I think we've made the most progress on is in the health and safety space. We have a really great health and safety committee now, where we have a good health and safety advisor in Kane, or a great health and safety advisor who has a real focus on wellbeing, while previously it wasn't so much of a focus. We've got a lot more work to do, but I think in that culture space, it's more around health and safety being front of mind. We've still got a lot more work to do in the wellbeing space.
But you definitely are seeing a change in behaviours and I guess at a positive step.
I think one of the other contributing factors is we have had some turnover since I've been here, and we have recruited well. We've recruited some, the biggest impact on culture for employees are their leader. And if you've got a good leader, then you'll find that the culture in an organisation is a lot more positive, and we've recruited some really good leaders.
Awesome.
Yeah. which is great.
Thank you.
Just so, Joe, thank you.
Page 104, those pretty little columns, what's good catch has in it?
Good catch is, so for example, we had a really good catch the other day out at, it's not part of this report because this is a previous report, around out at Hod, where a contractor was digging posts and thought, hey, hang on a minute, there looks like there's a trench there, and it turned out that there was a electrical
A live cable that hadn't
live
been...
cable, and so that was a really good catch, right? And so that's that's sort of finding, looking at hazards in a way that before the event happens.
So that wasn't identified by whoever laid the cable, that there was a cable under there, you know, like they say.
It wasn't, there was no max with it on, so yeah, apparently it's quite common. It's quite common.
Very common.
Yeah, so if it had been that could have been a really serious event for us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tim, do you have another question?
Yeah, just like, it sounds like a bit of jargon, but with all these, like if you've got all these systems for around wellbeing and you look at extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, are we creating a culture here where it's all extrinsic motivation, like being motivated by things given to us as opposed to what we do in our jobs? Like in education, for example, there's very few ways to reward people extrinsically, so it's got to come from doing your work. Do you think there's a risk of that culture being created here? Like what am I getting for doing my job? What reward am I going to get?
I don't think there is a risk of that, Tim, because we don't give a huge amount. I'd like to give a lot more.
You would like to give more?
Yeah, well, but that's an HR view for you, Tim. But obviously, we're in a fiscal arrangement here. But to be honest, the key motivators here for our people aren't around, like wellbeing initiatives and so forth. It's about serving the community and doing, and the reward of doing a great job like a teacher, right? I wouldn't say the culture here is focused on a benefit I would dispute that to the people I talk to. I see the point you're making, mate.
Yep. Okay. Councillor
Are
Scott.
we discussion or still questions?
Still questions?
I just want to discuss in terms of comment.
Any more questions? I've got two real quick ones. Good catch. We only had one. Well, to me, that's not good, is it? And what are you going to do about it?
Well, no, it's not. Well, it could be good though. It could be that our workplaces.
No, it's not the way I interpret it. I'll debate it in a minute, right?
Yeah, no. So that's the whole purpose of the rollout of our new health and safety tool. Our previous tool has been hard to use. The reporting functionality of it has been poor, and so our actual culture with our people around reporting health and safety has been immature. So it's an area where we see there's real growth, and we're launching the tool next month.
My last question, right, is I'm pleased to see that you're regularly auditing contractors under projects. Can we have in future the number of audits that were actually taking place, and do we have a target to actually audit a certain number a quarter?
So I knew you were going to ask me this, Phil, because you asked last time. We were looking at a metric for this report, and with the new appointment of our assets and infrastructure manager, there's actually quite a few data points in this space. And at the moment, we've implemented a ELT audit process where we go out into a business unit. But there's actually a lot more data and probably more important controls out there that we need to report on. So there is a piece of work that we're working in conjunction with the assets and infrastructure team to do a more thorough reporting component, because it is our biggest risk.
That's why I asked the question.
And it keeps me up at night. So there's a lot more we need to do in that space.
Cool, thank you for that. Any comments? Stella, you had a...
Oh, I just wanted to comment back towards Tim's comment, is that I'm with Ben and I believe that if people choose to work at council, it's because they're here for the greater good versus working for a big corporate, where you probably would expect the big fat bonus and the big gold watch, etc., etc.
Yeah, I also want to comment on that. I would also say that my experience is staff get motivated by being well respected from elected members and the public.
I'm okay.
Dick, you're Dick? Comment?
I'm doing fine.
You're doing fine?
I am.
Excellent. I'm pleased your well-being is great. Councillor Arrow, you had a comment.
Yes, I don't know whether it was a good catch or an near miss, but I nearly tripped when I came into the foyer, and whoever might have been Sandra saw, and she removed the mat, but I noticed that it was back again. So.
I'll talk to you after this, just to make sure. I was talking to Kane around how do we potentially look at getting the new tool that we have on your devices so you can potentially report hazards and trips as well.
Okay.
I'll look into that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Craig?
It's pleasing to see staff taking more of their leave.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it was a big win.
July.
Yeah, the challenge, councillor, will be over the next 2 quarters, maintaining it.
Yeah, I understand that David's going to take hold of the leave, so that's going to help dramatically. Well, the fact that he's actually, finance traditionally always had bad leave times, but just from my personal experience.
In the last 20 years.
Right, any further comments, questions of Ben, thank you, and Kane for the report? No? We've got a recommendation there. Do I have a mover? Councillor Craig, second to Councillor Stella. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Mr. Paris, has just been giving you some grief. It's at 6.7, page 111. Your financial report, we'll take it as read. Thank you.
Yes, I could talk to a number of the points in the financial variances, but it is all listed there.
Yep, thank you.
For your information. So, yeah, happy to take questions on the detail.
Councillor Bex, Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Stella.
This is a really small part of the financial report, but I'm just bringing it up, which is the parking division. Normally it's one of our few areas that actually makes money, or breaks even.
Yes.
And I would imagine that the drop in revenue versus the cost is because we've got broken parking meters. I'm not 100% sure of that, but we've talked about reviewing our parking probably for 6 years. And I know that it's on the list of things to do, but we get feedback about charging for parking, negative of course. We've also talked that there are other systems out there which would be a penalty and a time and a turnaround type of parking regime. We've got broken parking meters with freaking insulation tape wrapped around them, which is not a good look. I just think we should bring that piece of work forward and make a decision on what we're going to do with our parking in the CBD and get on with it. And also we do have complaints sometimes about attitudes revolving around parking infringements.
And your question is?
My question is, could we bring that piece of work forward and actually do something about our parking meters in our CBD and land on some sort of better process and system?
Yes, we can.
Does it stand here?
Matt knows about it. Yes, sorry I ran in because I could hear you talking about parking. So the work has just been completed by Stantec. So that is on, expected to be coming to you guys right at the start of the annual planning process, because that will be part of the considerations we would expect in that. We've just received it. I've been tied up in LTP stuff, so I've not been able to review it yet, but we'll be looking to bring it to you in the very near future, and that has some options and recommendations for what council might do in terms of enforcement and charging, etc.
And potential new meter systems.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
Just how pleased I am to see the three waters all over land expenditure. There's been lots of work going on and progress being made.
Your question?
Sorry, I forgot it.
Right, Councillor Scully, your question?
Councillor Johnson raised the same question I was going to ask. So
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Right, Councillor Merritt.
Forgive me for my ignorance, but what are financial contributions? Where do they come from?
Property development subdivision, where someone carves up a piece of land into multiple sections. Every one of those sections has to pay a financial contribution to the council to join the network of water and sewer systems, stormwater, and also pay towards parks and reserves and roading. So it's part of the combined district plan requirements in planning that they make a contribution.
And my second question.
Yes, go for it.
Why does the rates revenue, why does it exclude rates on council properties?
There's two financial statements. The second one, the rates requirement statement, is all of the costs of council and includes the council properties that pay rates, and it's an expense in that statement and it's an income in that statement. So when we set the rates, we're rating our own properties as well, and we have to count that on both sides of our equation. It's in our budgets, it's in our income. But when it comes to financial statements, the accounting rules are if it's an internal cost and an internal revenue, you have to eliminate the two. So that's why in that statement we make the note. This rates revenue number is different than the one in the other statement because we've taken out the rates that the council's paying on its own property.
Thank you.
Great to see the animal shelter is the question, scheduled here for a start next month. Have we got it? Is that a promise?
Yes.
Yes, that'll do. I'll take that. Second question is though, you know how we had that unforeseen delay with the sealing of the works at Hood?
Yes.
I know that the Hood users have been updated, but have we received any blowback from that from the Hood users?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. And great to see the car park Flora Place in the plan because the residents will be delighted. Thank you.
Right. Any further questions, comments?
A bit of comment, just around the rates received. Look, it's just tracking up and up and up, the amount of people aren't paying their rates. And I can just see it, if we're not really careful with the decisions we make, it's going to get even worse. And we need to look out for these people, that's what we're here for. And I think every dollar gets spent, we really need to consider. And I'm telling you how to suck eggs. Everyone in the room here can afford the rates. And there's a lot of people who can't. But I found that alarming reading that, David. You know, the amount it's going up every single year. It's way higher than it was last year. It's been tracking upwards and upwards and upwards. And we're here for our community. Everyone in our community.
We fair to say though, David, that would be a national trend, wouldn't it? I mean, every council I read.
Yeah, I asked for comments. Yes.
good.
Yeah, because I mean, I was going to make a comment. I totally agree that it's not a rates. I had this as a comment. The quarterly rates receivable movement is not the best news. Right? It's probably hurting your cash flow too.
A little bit.
A little bit. But I'm yet to see a council that produces financial statements to this degree. I'm yet to see one that hasn't seen the rates go up. And I think it's the economic climate that we're currently facing, and I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better.
So, I think I should respond to that. You should respond to my comment. We still need to account for every single dollar we spend, every decision we make.
I'm not disputing what you're saying, Councillor. I'm just adding to it. Councillor?
The other thing I'd be quite interested in though, this gives a breakdown of dollars owed, doesn't give a breakdown of households.
Or the number of rates.
Yeah. So if we've got 9,600 households that pay rates, and we've got 7 properties that we've taken legal steps, and I'm not dismissing what you're saying at all, Tim, because I do appreciate that, you know, economies go up and they go down, but to me, the dollar value can seem extreme, whereas the number of properties that are behind in their rates, I'd actually be interested to have that
That's a useful metric.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So could we?
I bring that through the year-end report, so the next Audit and Risk Committee in August will have a full end of financial year picture of the rate arrears and the numbers of properties and the categories of property, I suppose. How many of them are residential, how many are commercial, how many are rural, and the extent of arrears of how many of them owe more than a full year's
Yeah, I would find that just a bit more interesting.
Some are just getting a little bit behind, and if we put them on a payment plan and they catch up, they don't get a penalty. Others just don't pay their rates and they don't want to. If they have a mortgage, we've got a mechanism to get the rates from the mortgagee. But if they're mortgage free but they don't have the cash flow, and a lot of pensioners are in that situation, retired people don't have the cash, but they don't have a mortgage, they haven't got any money owing on their property. Doing payment plans for them is always our first step.
David, without adding any pressure, is there any possibility we get some form of data before deliberations on that?
I'd just quite like to know if however many households, however many ratepayers rather than dollars.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Yeah, and I think
before deliberation.
The issue too, that David's highlighted a really good point, because this talks about total dollars, right? The issue too is, right, that people are on a payment plan, right? It's a matter of timing, it's not a matter of if, right? So we will get there, right? And David has alluded to, which is a good step, that people who are on a payment plan don't get charged penalties. So they're not being penalised for being behind in their rates, providing they're on.
You just got to communicate.
You've got to communicate. And I think the other issue too is I see around the country, there are some people now that they do not believe they have to pay rates. That's also exacerbated. So that will be really useful.
Yeah, we've just been through 20th of the month quarterly payment on Monday, so the rate's due for the fourth quarter. We'll get some data on that, and I'll see if I can bring it through before the deliberations on numbers of properties.
I'd just like to make a comment, or we make a comment.
Yes, we are making comments.
There are some people that I know who would be in the situation where they're not aware of the making a plan will mean that you won't have to have penalties, because they're too scared, so they do nothing, so it's too late.
Councillor Goodwin.
I suppose I just want to clarify with you two gentlemen, if you've been saying it, it sounds like, you know, the rates are really stretching people, and it may not, I presume that means it may not be a very good time to increase your expenditure if you can avoid it.
Are you asking me to make a political statement as an
I'm
independent?
just sort of asking, no,
That would be a decision for elected members as you consider the long-term plan.
Absolutely.
But hearing your statement, that's what I interpreted, and I was just asking you to summarise it like that.
I would actually say there are basically, in terms of rates, we've all heard that there are people who can afford it, there are people who are struggling to afford it, and the bit I said, there are people that believe they don't have to pay rates, and that's on general land. I'm not talking about ordinary land, okay? And I'm seeing more of around the country, a few more people saying, I don't believe I have to pay rates. I'm a sovereign citizen.
I'm sure it'll be higher negative anyway.
Yes. Okay.
Why?
response to that, I think it's a little bit like saying that people on benefits don't know how to spend their money. I think that would be an absolute minority, Chair. I think people who aren't paying their rates are people that look like us often, and they're just desperate. And I don't think that comment's very fair. I'm sure there's some, and I'm sure there's some people who live on benefits that use their money really poorly, but almost all of them use it really well. And I think that people aren't paying their rates because they can't afford it and they're desperate. That's what I believe.
I didn't say there were people. I was saying there were three groups. There were people who can afford it. I didn't say they were paying their rates. I said there are people who are struggling to pay their rates. And there's an increasing number of people, they're a minority, significant minority, who don't believe they have to pay rates. I wasn't saying that beneficiaries are in that at all. I didn't make that comment. You put those words in my mouth, Councillor Tim.
No, I'm making the analogy though. I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm using an analogy. And I feel that the people who don't think they should pay their rates will be a tiny minority. And I think the people who aren't paying their rates but would like to will be a majority.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally. I'm not saying people don't want to pay their rates. But I'm seeing an increase in those people. That's what I'm saying. Across the country. Maybe not here. Maybe you don't have those groups. Right?
Maybe you can get over some of the people who don't know by advertising on various mediums.
Well, we have David can talk to this, but if we know there are rates overdue, there are certainly people, we do telephone calls and just try and find out their circumstances, and if we can assist, we absolutely do that. So we'll always take a gentle approach until we get to the point that we need to take further action. So it's a little like taxes, legalised extortion.
Ooh, right, okay, moving on. Right, any other comments?
It's extortion.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you. So if we go back to the recommendation there, so I just lost it. Just going to receive the report. Receive the report and the commentary.
Chair, I haven't produced a full year forecast for the operational statements. There's full year forecasts in there for the capital budgets. Operationally, I believe we're on track. I just haven't produced it, particularly the roading budget where there's some overspends year to date, but they're still looking to bring in the whole roading within their budgets with some overspending in maintenance and underspending in renewals.
Okay. All right. Yeah, David, I wasn't going to comment on that because I know you've been probably slightly busy on another project. Okay. So I threw that word. Okay. So can I have a mover for the recommendation on page 111? Councillor Marilyn, second Councillor Craig. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
I notice we've been going 1 hour 52 minutes. How long is your next item going to take, Mr. Paris?
There's a break.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Can we take an 8-minute break and be back at 3 o'clock? Is that long enough? Yeah. Right, we're adjourned for 3 o'clock.
Okay.
management update, page 120.
Thank you, Chair. Normally the investment report would come to the August meeting and reporting the returns on our investments over the 12-month period. In this case, we've been advised by ANZ Investments Limited that the wholesale division is closing up, and the 7.1 million we have invested with them in 2 bond vehicles will be returned to us, or we can move it across to another investment. So I'm bringing it to the committee today to ask for some direction.
No decision, a direction?
Well,
we don't have any delegated authorities committee.
We have an investment policy.
Yep.
And that policy dictates that we can invest with an external investment manager, a portion of the council's investments. And we have been using that manager, and they have charged very low fees, which is one of the reasons why we've used them. But it's been a very passive investment in high quality bonds. The returns from those bonds haven't been fantastic, and when you look at it over a 5-year period, and we can make other decisions with that money within the investment policy without bringing it to the elected members. But I wanted to make sure that the elected members were comfortable that there's enough in the investment policy for us to make those decisions at the staff level, or you would like to see some change to the investment policy, and if you indicate that, then we can bring that change back through the meeting cycles.
Thank you. Is that clarification? Councillor Stella, Councillor Gray, Councillor X.
Just so I'm clear, David, you're asking us, do we want to review because obviously what we've currently got is coming to an end. So you want us to review what we do with the money going forward, is that what you're saying? Or review who we invest it with?
It's not who we invest it with, but whether we take more risk.
How we invest it.
Yeah. Okay. What investment products we invest in.
Okay. Well, I would like to go further, personally, I would like to have further discussion.
Councillor Craig.
I have 4 questions. Do we have to invest in bonds?
No, the policy says we can, and that it is a safe investment with a regular return, so that it has been the choice that we've made in the past. We don't have to.
Excellent.
Yep.
Can it be a term deposit? Spread over various banks and various timeframes?
Yes, which is the sort of other half of the investment funds that we have are term deposits largely.
And my last question is, are we better off, if we're going to look at doing something like that, are we better off in a pie or in just a term deposit?
Just a term deposit.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Thank you. My last, no.
Okay, thank you.
Mine's not questions, mine's discussion.
Okay. Councillor Goodwin, question?
I'm thinking that it's relevant when we talk about risk-based investment to also, in the same conversation, talk about the insurance.
It sounds like a comment rather than a question. What's your question?
The question is, I'm not sure how to phrase
well, it's a comment then.
Can we talk about insurance as well?
The question is, we did make some changes to some of the things we insured
That's the next report.
months ago, and that it relates back to risk. And if I'm going to look at investing money, it's a relevant consideration.
Yeah, your question, councillor?
Question.
I don't think it is a question.
My question is, should we be having a talk about investment risk in isolation from insurance risk? Because to me, they are very connected.
I see them as two different things, risks
so
that we manage.
I think I see them because part of your you've got an investment policy and you say we've got this money to invest, so therefore how do we invest it? Then separately, when we come to the insurance discussion of these investments, so what additional risk do we want to take and can we use that investment nest egg to help balance our risk? So two totally different questions, two totally different approaches. The first is investment.
Just around investment, I would love to see some decisions made about us investing locally. There are some good, whether it be... It's not a question. Oh, I thought we were discussion.
I thought we'd finished. I thought I actually there were no more discussion. Sorry. Any more questions? No more questions? Question? No discussion? Discussion point, yeah.
Okay. I thought this was a really low return. And I understand everything that led up to and behind it. I'm similar on the same page, I guess, as Craig, in that, term deposits at the moment range between 5.8 and 6.1%. I'm also quite a big fan of spreading those in with different timeframes so that you get the money coming up as you go. But also too, we've got your building societies, Warwick Building Society, have we ever done business with them as a local? Plus we've got ANZs and stuff, but I'm at the moment, because of interest rates and also low risk, a fan of term deposit.
Councillor.
Thank you. Now that we're at discussion, I, would also like to see that we don't put all the eggs in one basket, but we do utilise our local businesses to invest in when and where possible. But I definitely would like to have further discussion on this.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if I can explain much more.
Okay, Councillor David.
6.2 rather at the moment.
Yeah. So the investment policy requires us to assess those the risks and spread the risks. So we wouldn't put it all with the highest paying interest rate, just in case that institution fell over. So we'd spread the costs, and there are. The WBS has a higher risk status than the main trade unions, so we've got a limit on how much we would put with any one institution. But if the and we will assess other bond products, and there's no guaranteed returns on any of those products, but there are fees that come with it if we give it to someone to manage for us. There's a management fee, so we're trading off. Are they going to get us a better return by paying them a fee for it, or is it safer for us to just put it on term deposit?
Correct.
My hands up. Can I just also add that within the Wairarapa, we do actually have, if not the top, or if not very close to the top, one of the top investors in New Zealand. And residing here and working here, so just we've got some, what I'm saying is we've got brains within the community that may be able to assist us.
That was going to be my question. Right. Now, so one of the committees I chair is South Taranaki. They've only got a little nest egg of something like 130 million, depending on a good day, 150 on a better day, 130 on a bad day. Right?
Farms.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, Tasman Farms.
No, that's so the issue is now they've decided they had a balanced approach, and they have decided as part of their reviewing of their risk approach to actually go for a growth approach. And now, the reason they've gone for growth is because they're saying it's a long-term investment fund, and therefore we are prepared to take more risk, i.e. over some years we won't actually do any return, but over a longer term history has shown that a growth fund produces more, and we're here for the long term, not for the short term. Now, that's their view. I'm not imposing it on you at all, but they actually said we should be taking on more risk. So if you're taking on more risk, there is a greater degree of chance of actually not receiving the return that you expect, but you've also got to think too, is it's not only return on investment, it's the return of the investment to make sure that you're going to get your money back. right? So that's that trade-off, right? Councillor Tim and then Councillor.
You probably, sorry, you particularly know more about this than I do. You know, when you look at a growth fund,
Yep.
and you look over a long period of time, if you go back to like 2008,
yep.
So is it, and you had 2008 sitting here, has it gone up and then down a little bit since 2008 and then significantly higher?
Oh, absolutely. So what happens, that's the market, right? You look at the funds over, well actually I would go back to 2000, right? Because actually even before then, because you've actually seen the market go up and down the growth funds. And that's the risk that we're talking about. There's two risks. One, you won't get the return in some years when you need it. So you've got, if you're counting on the cash to live on and you've got a growth fund, it won't be there. The other thing too is you've got to make sure that where you're investing is you're going to get the investment return to you as well.
Right, so if you looked at, even with the global financial crisis, there's still the benefits of a growth fund.
Correct, absolutely. Appropriately managed growth fund.
Which is why you pay fees for the management of it. And we don't, it's not our bread and butter to do funds management.
Okay, I've got Councillor Craig and I've got Councillor Still.
I think council would be taking on enough risk of coming up from a AAA bond scenario down to a double B or a triple B through one of the banking products.
Yep.
The term deposit, we have a very high probability of our money coming back. I sit on another organisation that has considerable funds, and there's always a little bit of kittens when our managed fund, they use a managed fund.
Yep.
A few kittens happen
when
it
loses value.
Yep.
When it loses value.
So this is a great way, and it's also, the return would be approximately 350k, which would be a good way of offsetting maybe some of our insurance costs or something like that.
Okay. Councillor Beats.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think, if I understand, this is really for you to get a steer on whether council wants to consider other options and is prepared to look at other higher risk options. So you'll come back anyway, won't you, and say, this is what we can do?
Yeah.
Well, I think if we were going for, now just correct me if I'm wrong, if we're going totally for term deposits, that's already within the investment policy. If that's the strong direction from the committee, you just go and do that. But if we want to explore a higher risk, right? Okay.
So growth funds will always have some equity investment in them,
yes.
And the policy currently excludes an equity
I'd just
investment.
go for term deposits because that's a step
It's
from
a
this.
significantly better return than what.
Yeah, it's almost twice.
Can I caution council, right?
I don't want to make a decision.
The issue for me is term deposits, but what was the, in 21, David, what was the term deposit rate?
Probably less than 2%.
In fact,
Yeah, but you can change it.
some
I mean, you can only, you can do it for 12 months.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but I'm just, you're right, you got to, right, that's where you need that.
It's a 5-year rolling.
That's got to have that strategy in place.
5-year rolling.
Yeah.
Or mature at
Maybe
the
that's
same
staggered,
time.
wouldn't it?
And we also need liquidity.
Yep.
Every time it rolls around.
Hold on, one person speaking.
Every time that rolls around, the 1.7 million approximately, if you're doing a 5-year plan, you can then look at, do we then shift it over to a fund? Do we want to have more risk?
Right.
But liquidity is also one of the reasons for holding the fund, so we don't want to have it tied up that we can't actually access it if we needed it.
Because you have to, it's like the 31st of August, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have to wait till then, or could you move it before then? 31st of August?
You can move it before.
We can move
Yeah.
it whenever we,
Because term deposit was 6.1 and now it's 5.9.
5 years is allowed. 5.3, 5.
Still much.
All right, so.
And can we make a decision here to move it now, or do we have to wait
It's
until?
direction, it's direction to David.
yeah, I would probably be better to leave it to the end of the financial year in where it is.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that's only to the 30th, isn't it?
And then we have further discussion about what we decide to do with that.
No, we don't think we need that if it's within the policy, and your feeling is that use term deposits and investigate other investment products that are within the policy, then I can come back in the August meeting and report what other options are.
Could I ask?
And what the fee cost, the cost of those products would be.
Thank you.
Could I ask why we have to wait till it runs its time?
No.
We're not. It's just to work with our financial year, it's 30th of June,
Yeah.
but these are in this bond thing till the 31st of August.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Right.
are you happy with that though?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, the financial officer.
So if you, David wouldn't have put the recommendation if he wasn't happy with it, I hope. No? There was no options today, David, you wouldn't come back with another option. So basically, we go to the recommendations. This was saying going to receive the information and then direct staff to follow the procurement process to place the funds with another external fund manager, okay? And that the change will be a council decision varying. Well, actually, you're saying is we don't need to vary it.
If there's no desire to move into more growth products, we don't need to vary the investment policy.
Okay. Can I therefore suggest we change the recommendation to after the words external funds manager, comma, and report back to the next Audit and Risk Committee or appropriate council meeting. Okay, so that gives you discretion to act sooner. Okay.
We'll decide on what course of action we take after.
No. So what we're saying is David will look at the investment policy.
Yeah.
He will then say these investments meet the policy.
Yeah.
He will then action it depending on the conversation we've had today, and he will report back to council. He may choose, right, to also say in this report back to council, because there's probably a couple of council meetings before August, one or two.
Only one.
Only one?
End of June.
End of June. So you could report back to June, but you've got another little project to deal with as well, David. Right? Bearing in mind, we don't actually have to make the final decision until the end of August. Sure. So Chief Executive, are you comfortable? That's good. Did you get that, Harriet?
Recommendation 2 becomes direct staff to follow a procurement process to place the funds with another external fund manager and report back to the next Audit and Risk Committee meeting or council meeting as appropriate.
Can I just get clarification?
Yes, sure.
Does another mean singular, or should it be with other external fund managers?
Thank you. I would accept other fund managers. Thank you.
Or products.
Or products, yeah.
Products. So if we refer to products, then a term deposit is a fund product.
Product. Okay. Did you hear that, Harriet?
So other external fund products?
No, managers. So it's not manager, it's manager.
Managers.
With other external fund managers.
Products.
Looking locally
for products.
Yeah. That's.
I'll talk to them.
Okay. All right. All right. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Craig, seconded. Councillor Speaks. All right.
This way.
Yeah. Okay.
Discussion.
Any further comments? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you very much. Right. Insurance update.
We're progressing towards the insurance renewal for the next financial year. So the 1st of July is a new insurance year. And there's a number of decisions and work being done by our insurance brokers to place our insurance. Indications of uplift in premiums, more than what we understood they would be when we prepared budgets back in February. Particularly the lack of disaster insurance, which is quite a surprise given that we've done a lot of risk assessment and maximum probable loss calculations and working. It seems that that's actually increased the awareness of the London insurance market of the risks in New Zealand to the assets that we're insuring, and is it's a 50% lift in the cost of those premiums. So that the graph that you see on page 125 of the agenda, the biggest lift, the biggest cost is the material damage insurance. And a lot of that premium there is covering the earthquake component of the insurance, as opposed to fire or storm or flood. But I suppose what I want to have discussion from the council is the extent to which we insure for material damage different properties. So I've done some work on what we currently insure for full replacement or reinstatement value, and what we insure for indemnity value. Indemnity being what it's worth today as a depreciated building. If it was lost today, it wouldn't give us the money to replace it. So if we insure for indemnity, a rural hall, and it burnt down, we wouldn't have enough to replace that rural hall. If we insure it for reinstatement, we wouldn't have enough. So that the message to the people who use those community facilities and buildings the council owns, if we insure it for indemnity, it's unlikely the council would have the insurance proceeds to immediately replace it. And it would not therefore be sit in a queue for other things, and it may get replaced, or it may be something smaller. So the decision making isn't simply, we've got the insurance money, we just put it back again. So going through the council's assets, there aren't a lot of council assets that sit in that category of we can do without it, we wouldn't replace it. So to reduce the amount of insurance on council assets puts at risk the amount of funding that we would get if we lost those assets. But having said that, in the insurance discussions, it's a maximum probable loss situation. You're not going to lose everything all at once. And $180 million of assets the council is insuring, one event isn't going to cause the loss of all those assets in one event. So working with the insurers to try and reduce the premium cost while not increasing our risk is our challenge at the moment. And what I did was try and identify some of the buildings and properties that we could add to the list of indemnity value. So I've given you the list of properties that are currently on indemnity value. I've come up with another list of 10 assets, 11.9 million. That would only reduce the premiums by between 40 and 50,000. But some of those assets listed in that 11.9 are quite significant buildings and assets. Now, I haven't listed them here because there's no proposal to do this at the moment, and I don't want to scare the horses by naming buildings and having the tenants of those buildings thinking, well, the council won't replace it if it's burnt down. So we're having the discussion at the higher level at the moment, not specifically which buildings may or may not be insured fully, but as an indication, adding more to the indemnity value doesn't bring the premium down dramatically.
David, can I just clarify something? It's clarification, right? Discussion and questions. So what you're saying is at the moment, do you actually have a loss limit? Is that what I heard?
There's a loss limit for earthquake, or sorry, a deductible.
Deductible, yeah.
For earthquake, which is different from fire.
Yeah. It's deductible, but not loss limit. And I'm talking technical terms of.
There is a loss limit in the policy as well.
I
don't have that at my fingertips.
What is a loss limit?
That was okay. So David talked about having if there was one event, right, we're unlikely to lose everything all at once.
Yeah.
So what you do is you say, we're unlikely to, if we lost everything at once, it would be catastrophic. It would be the Hikurangi fault, it's gone, and basically the Wairarapa doesn't exist. Right?
Yeah.
Okay? So what you're saying is, our maximum probable loss is $180 million. So irrespective of the total value of all our all our things we want to replace, but our buildings will only take a cover of a total of 180 million. Or that's where you actually potentially get some more savings from.
Or if you have, say, an art collection, you have $500,000, $1 million of art. $500,000 in one building, $500,000 in another. You don't insure probably $500,000.
That's a loss. Unless you're doing it. So you have a loss limit.
Yes, in the policy there is.
Policy. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay.
So you don't know what percentage of our assets that is, though?
No, I need to go back to the policy documents and ask the question, by changing that loss limit, what are the premium savings?
Yeah, correct. The fact that you've got a loss limit indicates you have premium
So that presents an opportunity, though?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But with opportunity comes risk.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, just for the rest of the theme.
So what do you want to?
So what do you want us to do, David?
What do you want to know? I like the idea of it, just to keep the ball rolling. The same with the finance. I like the idea of exploring opportunities and increasing our risk.
So coming back with a list of buildings that we would potentially move from reinstatement to indemnity, is that something that you want to consider?
Yes.
Would we do a maximum probable loss exercise? So an example is we might self-insure up to 10,000, 50,000 or 100,000. We may not insure individual toilets, but toilets that are connected to a building we might insure. So we did a lot of this in Wellington, and I think maybe there's a bit of work around that.
Just FYI, Trust House have done that exercise and they've increased their self-insurance because they've got a different range of assets they have.
Yep, correct. Yep.
And came back to the board.
Yep. So, yeah, that's a good one.
Can you just remind us, please, of the change we made a few months back? I think it was your suggestion. And I'm not sure this is the right environment to talk about it.
Well, it's in public at the moment still, so I'm not sure what decision it was.
Okay, well, well, I'm not going to say it, but it was quite a big change. From memory, you got us from 12.9 to 11 point. It was about 400k cut.
I know it is.
If that gives you a clue. And 400, so it was 1% down on the roads, I think. So it was a fairly major thing. But anyway, is it possible to discuss that in the next? I'd just like it to be part of the equation.
I've got an outstandingly good memory, but I can't quite remember what we're talking about.
I'll see if I could bridge that.
I might be able to remember that in half an hour.
Yeah, in half an hour. I like that, Councillor. Yeah. Remember in half an hour? Well, you go, hey, we're going to spend half an hour on this, are we, Councillor Craig? I hope not. Thank you.
So I suppose, in terms of the report, I've looked at the deductible amount, and the increasing the deductible doesn't give us a lot of benefit across the board. Even going to 50,000 is our risk. The premium savings there are very small. So I would recommend not moving the deductible up. It's already a significant amount for earthquake loss. So in an earthquake, the deductible is 5% of the value of the building. If it's a fire and something burns down, we get 5,000. We pay 5,000, and we get everything else above that. So we've actually done well from a number of fires. It's a couple of.
Excuse me.
We've got our money out of a couple of buildings that weren't needing to be replaced. So there's two at Henley Lake. One was a bird watching tower and a barn, and there was one at the airport, a barn at the airport that blew over. So we haven't replaced them. The money's available, and we're going to invest it in the playground at Henley Lake. So the fact that we had a 5,000 deductible has benefited us in those instances.
You're going to, did I hear you say you're going to look at varying those, what I call excesses, and
No, I'm saying varying the excess has very little impact on premiums, and I wouldn't recommend changing the excess, but changing the value that we insure for those buildings that are potentially not going to be replaced if they were lost.
It doesn't have much effect either.
It doesn't, but we can keep asking the brokers to give us information about what effect it does have. I've done my calculations, but I want to test how much appetite there is for it before I get them to do more work on it. So I think I'm hearing that we should keep exploring more buildings insured for indemnity value.
Yep, that's very good.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, all right. So that's what. So therefore, recommendation 3 still stands, David. You've got enough time to do it before deliberations.
We've got to set a budget. We've got to set a budget for our LTP, and that budget will incorporate the insurance premiums that we've got ahead of us. And we'll make some assumptions around what savings we can make on those premiums.
Okay. So you are comfortable with the recommendations that you've currently put to us?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question quickly? I know that as a homeowner person, you can look at, we can go shop around for insurance willy-nilly. It's similar. I guess this is such high-level insurance in my eyes. It seems quite big and overwhelming, lots of different departments. But you know, we sort of seem to have spent a lot of money with this QBE Australian company. And I guess, do we, I know it's time consuming, but do we reach out to many and try and get some deals together? Like surely they're wanting our customer as much as we want the cheapest deal, you know? How do we kind of look around?
The package of material damage and business interruption cover is put out to the insurance market.
Yeah.
But none of the insurance companies want the whole lot. And they end up saying, I'll do 10% of that. And so when we make a claim, we will get 4 or 5 payments, being their 5%, their 10%, their 15% from each insurance company. So their risk is being spread. They won't look at our portfolio and say, I'll cover that, council.
Yeah, okay.
They'll cover a percentage of our risk.
Right. So it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
That's why we use a broker to be in the market to buy the insurance.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a supplementary question to yours? So you talked about, just for council's information, you talked about the going to market for the insurance product. What about going to the market for the broker?
We haven't done that for 7 or 8 years. There's really 2 brokers who look after council business. There's Aon and there's Marsh.
Yep.
The fees we pay for the broker to do the work is not a percentage base, it's a flat fee. And we can test that with Aon and see what their flat fee is. maybe too late in the
I will be too late.
insurance renewal round at the moment.
You missed the boat.
Maybe next time.
We do, Aon does manage the LAP scheme now, so we do have contacts with them.
I will declare a slight conflict of interest, right? Aon hosts other chairs of audit and risk committees as a facilitator, as facilitator. But then I played no active role in recommending brokers. All I'm saying is, and they actually also do a free one-day session for staff on risk management as well. But then Marsh sponsor the Tautura Risk Management Forum as well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But again, those are the only two active brokers in the race.
That do council.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're not part of a Waifu pay.
No. Well, we are Waireka, the three Waireka councils do buy together.
So you would actually, so it would actually have to be combined. Correct. Okay. All right.
To move away.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Good. Any further discussion? Further questions? Any questions?
Yes. You spoke about an English or London firm that was said that it's looking at New Zealand, they complained. Was it only New Zealand?
Well, the reinsurance is the business that the Lloyd's of London people and other insurance brokers are based out of London. A lot of the decisions are made at that level around how much risk they're prepared to wear, and they'll look at where the cyclones are occurring or likely to occur, how much loss they had from this last cyclone in Florida, and they look at New Zealand and say, well, you had a big cyclone event in February last year, this is the extent of the losses, our premiums were this much, we lost money here, our premiums need to go up to cover the next event, or cover the losses from the last event. So they look at the earthquake predictions, the Hikarangi fault. The information is it'll go in the next 50 years, so that's a reasonably good time. So again, they're all about protecting their investors' money and offering an insurance product to the market that sees them over the long term not losing their investors' money. So yeah, it's a complex market, but those decision makers in London are really, we're at their mercy in their view of the risk that we pose to them.
And it's interesting too is we haven't talked about public liability insurance, right? But public liability, that market is actually Australia and New Zealand up and down combined. Okay? And the good news is we don't have quite the same risk from in terms of some of the liability that Australia currently has that we don't have at the moment, but that will change. Okay? So that's
fair to say that they would be interested to know how much what the insurance payments look like in Australia. So they probably don't have the geological risk, they possibly have some fire risk, and they have higher liability.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't have ACC.
So it would be interesting, just as, you know, it would be interesting to know what.
From a public liability perspective, they combined it, but from a property perspective, they don't. So different types of insurance have different profiles. Right. Any further questions, comments? We've got a recommendation there on page 123. Do I have a mover? Councillor Beck, seconded. Councillor Craig by a whisker. All those, no further discussion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Can I have a mover? We move into public excluded. Councillor David. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. We wait for Harriet to give us the word.